I'd like to call the public hearing to order. Will clerk please call the roll?
His Honor the Mayor.
Here.
Counselor Reynolds. Here. Counselor McLaughlin.
Here.
Counselor Emmons. Counselor Walker. Here. Counselor Gozick.
Here.
Counselor Van Buren. Here. Counselor Corzino.
Here.
6 counselors present, Your Honor.
The public hearing is for the Verizon Wireless Telecommunications Facility located at 132 Ellen Street. We have one person signed up to speak, and that would be Cindy Snyder.
Good evening. My name is Cindy Snyder, and I live on Eisenhower Ave in the 7th Ward. I wasn't able to come to the committee meeting last week, so if my questions or concerns have already been answered, I'm going to ask for your indulgence. In reading the article in the Morning Palladium Times on the Verizon cell towers, I had several questions or concerns that came to mind, so I'm going to ask those questions. The first one is, in the last few years, the city has experienced some powerful pop-up windstorms that have sustained winds reaching 30 to 40, 50 miles an hour in some places. These storms have snapped large trees in two with very little warning. What kind of guarantee can be given that these 8-foot antennas on the top of this building, the Garden Building, which is right on the top of the hill, would not be sheared off and land on the surrounding homes in the area should we have these pop-up windstorms in the future? My second question is, what is the probability that these antennae could start an electrical fire on the building that houses elderly people and people with limited mobile abilities? I had a grandmother that lived in that building when it was owned by Loretto for 2 years, and that would be a concern of mine if my grandmother was still living there. And the third question is, what effect, if any, might these radio frequency waves have on people that have a pacemaker to control their heart rhythms, either living inside the building or in homes in close proximity to the building? Maybe you can answer that. Thank you.
Ms. Snyder. Ms. Snyder. We do have representatives from Verizon Wireless as well as the city's consultants who are and will be answering each of those questions. Appreciate them all. They're all very good questions. And if there are no one else is signed up to speak, perhaps we could hear from the Verizon Wireless representative, Mr. Lusk, and then from our retained consultants, Ms. Marino. And between the two of them, I think your questions will be answered.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else like to speak on the Verizon telecommunications facility? Go ahead. Please state your name and address.
My name is Steve Fitzsimmons, and I live at 332 West 3rd Street. I just have some concerns about, my main concern is the RF radiation. I broke my hand today, so I really didn't bring a lot of prepared information, but I just, from the information, I have worked 9 Mile before, and there's an electromagnetic field that comes off these towers. It's well documented. The concern is when I did training out there, it was time, distance, and shielding that you kept yourself away from the radiation. So considering these towers are on a consistent basis, so the time clock would be 24 hours that this cell phone tower would be getting pinged, or whatever you call it. The distance, it's in a quite concentrated area of the city. The houses are very close. And it's my understanding that the waves travel along the ground, or they travel along the landscape. Now, I do have an electrical degree, but I haven't done extensive research on the amount of time since that I've got the notice to address this subject. but I do have a concern because there is an electromagnetic field there. To what varying degree it affects different people, when I understand differently. Some people may have no effect at all. But the concern is cell phone towers in the past have been put out in rural areas. There's a high elevation for these towers for a good reason. So I think putting them in a highly concentrated area, you know, irregardless of the aesthetic effects, that doesn't bother me so much, although it's not pleasant. I'm more concerned about the scientific effects on the population because of the time, the distance, and I guess the lack of studies on this altogether. So, like I said, it's a concern for, I read articles that people that leave their Wi-Fi on during the nights are more susceptible to this, have trouble sleeping, et cetera, et cetera. So I just want to address, my main concern is the RF radiation. I understand that I live right down the hill from this place, so this would probably, I mean, I'm fairly going to be exposed to it on a constant basis. So my question is I understand the Verizon people have an obvious stake in whether it goes through or not, but my concern is the safety of the RF radiation. And I guess that's all I have.
Thank you. Any other members of the public like to speak? With that, I'll allow the folks from Verizon some time to maybe answer some questions.
Good evening, members of the council. I appreciate having the opportunity to come back again this week, following the committee meeting last week. With regard to the structural stability, the project's been designed to a G structural stability standard for wind, which is the latest standard for wind and ice shear in this area. Obviously, Verizon has as much interest in keeping those antennas up on the roof as anyone else to keep them operating, and that's the G standard is what will be used in the design of the stealth boxes where these antennas are going to be located. With regard to a probability of electrical fire, I think we discussed that at the committee meeting as well. There's no more chance of electrical fire here than anywhere else. Most of the electrical components are in the cabinets down on the ground, not behind the facility, and not up on the roof itself. And then, as the city's consultant indicated last meeting, the RF engineering issues are not an issue in her view. I don't want to put words in her mouth, but I believe that in some, that's what she indicated last meeting, and we presented documentation, again, a revised one this evening, indicating that there simply is that the project will operate in accordance with federal standards, and therefore the board is obligated to consider that federal standard and not a standard that's separate from that federal standard. With regard to the RF waves, again, back to the studies that have been provided and Ms. Marino's comments at the last meeting, so I'll defer to her explanation as well. Are there any other questions that the board has?
Counselor?
In ignorant, what is G standard?
That's a G structural standard that's used, and it's so many miles per hour with so much thickness of ice on it, because obviously when there's ice on a tower or on a structure, it makes it more susceptible to collapse or to just based on the weight and the structural. So it's designed to that beefy standard. I think it's a half inch of ice, and I think it's 90-mile-an-hour winds. Yeah. Again, it's designed to stay there.
Any other questions? Sue?
I know nothing on the subject, but we all know that we can turn off our cell phones because they can be really expensive. Is there anything to do that I didn't from the top of the home phone?
again, the answer to that is no, but again, Ms. Marino would be able to describe that as she did last week, that there just simply isn't an issue with that. We're not concerned about that.
Thank you. Any other speakers on the Verizon facility?
Good evening. My name's Sue Marino from the Center for Municipal Solutions. We're the consultants for the city regarding wireless facilities. In answer to the questions raised, the wind safety, yes, structural analysis is one of the conditions that we recommend, and that's also, and to correct you, the standard in New York State right now adopted is ANSI F, not G. G is used in some states, but it's not been accepted in in New York State yet. But as far as structural safety, there are going to be stealth walls to mimic a penthouse around each sector of antennas. Those walls, as well as the antenna mounts, will have to be at the structural standards that are adopted under the New York State Building Code currently, and that will include high winds, et cetera. So that is something that is going to be required with the structural work. As Mr. Lux said, electrical fires, there will be electrical inspection by an approved electrical inspector anytime there's a new installation like this to meet current electrical standards. And the RF emissions, as I had mentioned last week, there are standards that the federal government has set up, and if the carrier is operating within those guidelines, within those standards, then a local municipality is not allowed to deny based on health issues specifically. And one of the requirements, again, in our letter of recommendation, is that they have to be operating within the FCC standards. We will be reviewing that. We did get another submission handed to us tonight. Of course, I haven't had a chance to look at that yet. But as it stands, the information that we have now, and that's already been confirmed, is somebody walking around down on the ground, it's at or below 1% of that federal standard of emissions. As far as going down through the roof down to the citizens or the residents in the assisted living facility, the signal and the emissions as well are targeted from tower to tower, not pointed down to the ground to go down through. So as far as somebody on the fourth floor, being the closest floor, right underneath that roof, or someone in the stairwell, that's not going to be an issue. The only thing that we are still looking for right now is on the rooftop. If somebody is on the rooftop, where on the rooftop the barriers and the signs would have to go, because there will be, obviously you can't stand in front of the antennas. So there will be some areas of the roof that will have to be cordoned off with warning signs to make sure somebody isn't standing in one of those areas that would be above the standard as far as how much emissions. But the neighborhood, the homes around it, walking around on the street, the residents down in the building below the roof, that is not an issue as far as emissions, and is well below the federal standard. Like I said, down on the ground in your homes and neighboring homes, they're at 1% or less than what the federal standard allows for emission levels. Was there any other questions that I can address from either the council, or was that clear enough?
Thank you.
All righty.
As Ms. Marino indicated, that the state of New York hasn't yet adopted the G standard. The G standard is the latest national standard and is more thorough and rigorous than the F standard. If the council would like us to design the tower and the facilities to the older standard, New York's legislature is busy doing other things. They haven't apparently adopted the latest and greatest standard, but if they'd like us to adapt it build it to the F standard, we'd prefer not. But if it meets the G standard, then it will, by its very terms, meet the F standard. You guys just decide which standard you'd like us to apply. Maybe the city engineer can weigh in on that issue.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn the public hearing. Councilor Walker, Councilor Van Buren. Call the roll.
Counselor Walker? Yes. Counselor Gozick?
Yes.
Counselor Van Buren?
Yes.
Counselor Corradino?
Yes.
Counselor Reynolds? Counselor McLaughlin?
Yes.
The resolution passes 6-0.
Closes the public hearing. We'll start the public session. We have 6 speakers signed up. First one being Sally from 88 Edwards Circle.
Does this come out of here? Okay. I wanted to address the issue of the use of herbicides in the city parks. I wasn't at the last meeting, so I wasn't present at that, but I wanted to address my concerns. I have serious concerns about the use of herbicides in our city parks. I've seen a list of the common herbicides that may be used, and I've looked up the chemicals that are in these herbicides and their toxicity to mammals, birds, fish, and non-target plants. None of them have been tested in humans because that would be considered unethical because of potential risk to health. These are some of my concerns. Many of the chemicals pose a risk to plants that have not been targeted. In various ways, the chemicals can get into nearby plants and trees and can kill them. Many of these chemicals can contaminate groundwater. These chemicals can run off into streams, rivers, and lakes. Many of these chemicals are moderately or highly toxic to fish. For example, sulfometron methyl, which is in many of the herbicides, can kill off fish in the hatch stage. They're particularly vulnerable even at low concentrations of the chemical. Many of these chemicals are persistent in the soil. Some have a half-life of 232 days, which is almost 8 months, so they can last a long time. With repeated applications, the amount in the soil would keep increasing. At least one study of chronic toxicity was conducted in which dogs were fed the chemical imazapic for 1 year. Researchers found deterioration of abdominal and thigh muscles as well as some tissue death. Also noted were anemia or red blood cell deficiency, increased cholesterol, and increased liver size. Many of these chemicals are eye irritants, and when combined with the inert ingredients in some of the herbicides, can cause severe, irreversible eye damage. The issue of inert ingredients is a serious concern. These inert ingredients are solvents, preservatives, and surfactants, which are added to the herbicide to help them, for example, by penetrating plant surfaces or by increasing their toxicity. These inert ingredients are not listed on the herbicide labels because they're considered to be trade secrets. An article in Scientific American points out that most health studies on herbicides containing the chemical glyphosate, which is present in many herbicides, have focused only on glyphosate itself. However, scientists have found that the inert ingredients in these herbicides amplified the toxic effect of human cells on human cells, even at concentrations much more diluted than those used on lawns and fields. One specific inert ingredient, POEA, was more deadly to human embryonic, placental, and umbilical cord cells than the herbicide itself. The researchers found this, quote, astonishing, unquote. In another herbicide which contains the chemical imazapic, there is also the inert ingredient crystalline silica, which is listed as a known cancer-causing agent by the International Agency for Research on Cancer. My greatest concern, of course, is the unknown effect of many of these herbicides on humans. Since they are not tested on humans, the only way to find out for sure if they are dangerous is to wait and see what happens. If there is an increased incidence of cancer or other health problems, then we'll know. I would rather not take that risk. I don't feel comfortable just assuming a substance is safe until something goes wrong. I think we should err on the side of caution, especially since we know we have excellent alternatives, which we know to be non-toxic to humans. Thank you.
Good evening. Sally has just given you the chemistry of the subject. I'm more concerned generally that it appears that the people that are most excited about using herbicides are the people who sell them. And it certainly doesn't do us any good to know that, for instance, Monsanto thinks Roundup is safe. The only testing that's been done has been done by people who make money selling. More research is, some of the research has been done by independent entities and published in places like the Journal of the Union of Concerned Scientists and Cornell University. Convinces me, I'm a retired engineer, convinces me that the science is very not settled on this issue. And I think we're proceeding on thin ice for widespread herbicides in this city. I would certainly urge you to post signs at the parks and along the Riverwalk that anybody with children under 14 avoid these areas. We would also be well advised to keep our liability insurance paid up. I think this is a very bad idea. Thank you.
I just wanted to take a moment, I'm sorry guys, I'm kind of hoarse. I just wanted to take a moment and talk about the Hands on Oswego project from this past weekend and thank everybody that came out. We had close to 50 college students that volunteered to help clean up our community, and I think that that's definitely worth commenting about. And then we also had a total of over 100 community members that showed up to help clean city parks, to clean the Riverwalk, among other things. So I just wanted to tell everyone thank you.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be here last week, so I didn't get to lend our support from the H. Lee White Maritime Museum at Oswego. We are in full support of the National Marine Sanctuary effort, and we are on the team to hopefully make that happen. And so we're just here to re-endorse it, endorse it again, whatever, just to know, for you to know that we are all excited about the potential for this community. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor and councilors. I'm going to be quick because we have an agenda and a lot of I really publicly apologize to you, Mr. Walker. I crossed a line last week and you called me on it, rightly so. I'll try not to have that happen again. It's issue I'm very passionate on, and it got a little heated, and I would like to apologize. I meant no offense. I hope to see you all reconsider. I hope you read the information I left last week, and because it doesn't only encourage you to do what's right, it encourages you to spread to the public what is right, encourages people not to use these chemicals privately on their lawns, as well as not in public parks too. And I'd just like y'all to make sure, I know you're busy, please read what I handed over to you and consider the information and consider revisiting the issue. Thank you.
As I look around this historical hall here, looking for somebody that was where I was in '68. Me, I don't see anybody here. Imagine that. What would you know about insecticides, pesticides, and all that other stuff? We called it back in my day, Agent Orange. My father made it to 79 years old, and he was a potato farmer, spraying that old farm with just about anything they were throwing out at the time. 2.5 packs of Camels a day, eating the stuff he shouldn't have been eating, working in a warehouse, spreading that old LP gas all over the place. He made it real good at 79 years old. I think this is more of a person who can handle stuff. Look, I got sprayed pretty good over there, and I've been smelling that stuff since I've been back here, and I'm 68 years old in August, and I think I can outrun anybody in the office here. It ain't that bad. Thank you, Bill.
His Honor the Mayor. Counselor Reynolds. Counselor McLaughlin.
Here.
Counselor Emmons. Counselor Walker.
Here.
Counselor Goza.
Here.
Counselor Van Buren.
Here.
Counselor Corodino.
Here.
6 present, Your Honor.
counselors have any comments or anything they'd like to add? Seeing none, clerk, please read Resolution 137.
To express support of the Common Council regarding the Great Lake Ontario National Marine Sanctuary.
Counselor Walker, Counselor McLaughlin. Any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Walker,
Yes.
Counselor Gozick,
Yes.
Counselor Van Buren,
Yes.
Counselor Corradino,
Yes.
Counselor Reynolds, Counselor McLaughlin.
Yes.
The resolution passes 6-0.
Clerk, please read Resolution 138.
Is to approve minutes of the Common Council meeting held April 11th, 2016.
Counselor Reynolds, Counselor Gozick. Any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Walker,
Yes.
Counselor Gozick,
Yes.
Counselor Van Buren,
Yes.
Counselor Corradino,
Yes.
Counselor Reynolds, Counselor McLaughlin.
Yes.
The resolution passes 6-0.
Clerk, please call Resolution 139.
Is to approve use of public space, Cub Scout Pack 888, in order to use the parking lot at 9 Burkle Street on Tuesday, May 3rd, 2016.
Counselor Van Buren, Counselor Corradino. Any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Walker,
Yes.
Counselor Gozick,
Yes.
Counselor Van Buren,
Yes.
Counselor Corradino,
Yes.
Counselor Reynolds, Counselor McLaughlin.
Yes.
The resolution passes 6-0.
Clerk, please call Resolution 140.
Is to approve use of Franklin Square Park by the Theta Chi fraternity in order to host a fundraising event on Saturday, April 30th, 2016.
Counselor Reynolds, Counselor Walker. Any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Walker,
Yes.
Counselor Gold,
Yes.
Counselor Van Buren,
Yes.
Counselor Corradino,
Yes.
Counselor Reynolds, Counselor McLaughlin.
Yes.
The resolution passes 6-0.
Clerk, please call Resolution 141.
Is to approve use of Brightback Park by the Oswego YMCA for fitness classes.
Counselor Reynolds, Counselor Van Buren. Any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Walker,
Yes.
Counselor Gozick,
Yes.
Counselor Van Buren,
Yes.
Counselor Corradino,
Yes.
Counselor Reynolds, Counselor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Resolution passes 5 with 1 abstention.
Counselor, Clerk, please call Resolution 142.
Is to accept donation of a park bench in memory of Sally Spath.
Counselor Walker, Counselor McLaughlin. Any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Walker,
Yes.
Counselor Gozick,
Yes.
Counselor Van Buren,
Yes.
Counselor Corradino,
Yes.
Counselor Reynolds, Counselor McLaughlin.
Yes.
The resolution passes 6-0.
Clerk, please call Resolution 143.
Is to accept donation of a park bench in memory of Louis Pilo.
Counselor Van Buren, Counselor Corradino. Any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Walker,
Yes.
Counselor Gozick,
Yes.
Counselor Van Buren,
Yes.
Counselor Corradino,
Yes.
Counselor Reynolds, Counselor McLaughlin.
Yes.
The resolution passes 6-0.
Clerk, please call Resolution 144.
Is to approve special use permit for the Verizon Wireless Telecommunications facility located at 132 Ellen Street.
Counselor Corradino, Counselor Walker. Any comments? Counselor Walker.
Yeah, I'd just like to let everybody know, we already do have a cell tower in the city of Oswego. It's over on, I believe it's East 11th Street in Seneca. I believe that's the address. I mean, we've never had a problem with that over there. It's right in the residential area, so I don't foresee, and I'm going to be supporting this.
Counselor Corradino.
Since this is proposed to go into my ward, I took this very seriously, this issue, because obviously there are some concerns with health. But more importantly, we're making a decision not just for us now, but in the future as well. So with that said, I took all the information that I was given by Ms. Marino and the applicant Verizon and did some research of my own. And I've come to the decision that I will support this, but I think it's because of the greater good. I'm preferring to look at this from another angle. All the research that I've done and is supported by the speakers, Ms. Marino and Mr. Lusk, is that RF emissions that the antenna will emit basically goes to the horizon and doesn't affect ground level or houses in the area. But with that said, anything to excess is not good for you. I don't care if we're talking about speed, drinking, anything else to excess is not good for you. So there is only one proposed tower in that area or cell site in that area, and I think that because there aren't more than this one, I can live with this, and I feel that in the greater good, for example, several years from now, if we don't propose or we don't pass this, and somebody in that area that had poor cell service, if they had to call for a fire or an ambulance and they couldn't get through, I wouldn't want to see something seriously happen to somebody because they didn't have enough bars on their cell phone. Because, as we all know, more and more people are doing away with landlines and using their cell phones. So I'm hoping the vote we take today will be supported in the future as well as now. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Goza.
Yes, first of all, I'd like to say that I agree with the logic behind Councilor Cordino's argument, and it makes sense. Okay, there's obviously merits to both sides of the argument, but representing the 5th Ward, I heard from more constituents on this issue than any other issue that all year long, parking ban, every other controversial issue, and there's a couple things here that I think that need to be considered. I took a lot of time, went in and met with Amy Birdsell, the planning and zoning director, and she sat there with me actually till like 6 o'clock on a Friday night, and I appreciate that she went above and beyond what she had to do, her obligation there. And I learned a lot about it as well. And I got to admit that when I finally got to the end of going through the application, we were looking for things that constituents had asked me and trying to find the answers. And it was very complicated. An ordinary individual wouldn't be able to understand the language or the legalese that's mixed in with it. But the bottom line was, something that struck me was at the end of the application, and here again it's been reinforced, and I appreciate the consultants and Verizon coming here tonight. At the end it tells you that under the 1996 Telecommunications Act, federal law, that we can't oppose it on the grounds of environmental concerns because it does meet federal regulations and guidelines. But I would just pose the question, number one, since when can we truly trust the federal government, number one, and number two, when we look at Oswego's a union town. Okay, and when we look at big corporations today, we know, and it's nothing against the individuals here in the room, but with Verizon, what's been going on right now, we look at the workers on strike, we look at issues like outsourcing jobs today with our economy and the shape it's in. And I would ask the second question to everybody here when they vote, since when did big corporations care about people, the ordinary American citizens? So that's all I'd like to say. As a matter of principle, I'm opposing this tonight, and the reason why is really simple. I ran on a platform of local control. And to me, what really bothers me, the reason why I'm voting against this, is because of the fact that, according to the application, I don't have any say in how I vote. And I voted similarly when we had the consent decree because I felt very strongly that I wasn't elected by the DEC or the EPA. I was elected by the people that live in the 5th Ward right here in Oswego, New York. So, again, I'm voting no because my constituents have voiced concerns, and I feel that if there's even the slightest health risk or potential for it, that the city benefits financially. We don't benefit at all other than having increased service, which can be beneficial down the road, but we don't get any money out of it or anything like that. So I'm voting against it as a matter of principle.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Walker?
Yes.
Councilor Gozer?
No.
Councilor Van Buren?
Yes.
Councilor Corradino?
Yes.
Councilor Reynolds? Yes. Councilor McLaughlin?
Yes.
The resolution passes 5-1.
Clerk, please call Resolution 145.
Is to authorize a public hearing regarding proposed local law number 3 of the year 2016, a local law amending Chapter 176, pawnbrokers of the Code of the City of Oswego, New York.
Councilor Walker. Councilor Van Buren. What this law is really giving the intent is to give the Oswego Police Department a tool to really track stolen items, track property that may end up one way or another at a local pawn shop or a dealer of some sort. What I found campaigning was we would have sections of the community where somebody would break into cars, try all unlocked cars. They go right up the street and steal whatever property they could find in those vehicles. So when I was talking to the residents, one concern they had was that there was no real way to track down their stolen item, where it may be, and they would go check themselves, the local pawn shops, and realize that the item may have already passed through the hands and be long gone, or there's just no real way to track it. So what this law really does is give OPD a tool that establishes a holding period for things like, let's say an iPad is stolen and it ends up at a pawn shop. It establishes a holding period so that OPD has time to track the item down. It establishes a permit fee. And again, I reached out to some folks from the local business community before pitching this law and had them vet the law and express some of their concerns. And we feel that this law is ready to be moved forward and implemented. I just add that other municipalities, including the city of Fulton and other counties, actually have this law, and that is another concern of why, another reason why I think it's important to move on this, because you could argue that Onondaga County has this law, if the city of Fulton has this law. If you're a criminal in Onondaga County, it may make more sense to come to Oswego and dish off your stolen item rather than hang out in a municipality where this law is already present. So that was the intent behind this law. That's why I'm bringing it forward. And I'd appreciate your support. Any comments from the councilors? Again, this is just to establish the public hearing in 2 weeks. Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Walker?
Yes.
Counselor Gozick?
Yes.
Counselor Van Buren?
Yes.
Counselor Corradino?
Yes.
Counselor Reynolds? Counselor McLaughlin?
Yes for the public hearing.
The resolution passes 6-0.
Clerk, please call Resolution 146.
Is to authorize the Animal Control Officer to participate in the Shelter Animals Count grant program.
Councilor Van Buren, Councilor Walker. Any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Walker?
Yes.
Counselor Gozick?
Yes.
Counselor Van Buren?
Yes.
Counselor Corradino?
Yes.
Counselor Reynolds? Counselor McLaughlin?
Yes.
The resolution passes 6-0.
Clerk, please call Resolution 147.
Is to approve new fee schedule for blacktop milling.
Councilor Walker, Councilor McLaughlin. Any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Walker?
Yes.
Counselor Gozick?
Yes.
Counselor Van Buren?
Yes.
Counselor Corradino?
Yes.
Counselor Reynolds? Counselor McLaughlin?
Yes.
The resolution passes 6-0.
Clerk, please call Resolution 148.
Is to approve 5-year capital expenditure plan for 2017 through 2021.
Councilor Van Buren, Councilor Corradino. As I said last week, perhaps the most surprising thing from transitioning from city councilor to mayor was realizing the exact level of neglect of some of our city buildings, certainly our infrastructure and city equipment. And looking back and seeing that the city has not had a capital plan for quite some time probably makes a little more sense, because there was no real schedule, no real initiative, no real incentive to upgrade equipment to stay on track with our infrastructure and stay on track and budget some repairs for our buildings. So that's why I think it's important to introduce a capital plan. Again, it's somewhat of a wish list. Every specific item has to come back before the council before we actually act on it. And obviously we can adjust as we go. But you'll see in the list that it's not the most glamorous list of projects, because unfortunately the reality is we need new plows, we need fuel tanks at the DPW. It's not the most exciting thing to talk about, but it's really where I've noticed the level of neglect. Some plans for the Brittany Hills development, some plans for upgrades at the marina are some of the more exciting things to talk about. Some upgrades at our animal control shelters. Most of us know the disrepair that building is in. So I think it's important that we at least take the initiative and establish this plan and do our best to stick to it as we move forward. Any comments? Councilor McLaughlin.
Yeah.
I'm glad that the Ponzi building made it on the list for 2018. I, however, would implore the mayor to push our community development director to apply for some grants for something closer to this date, if at all possible.
Certainly agree, Counselor, and I've actually already talked to the community development director about it, and we'll work together to try to find something to move it along. Any other comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Walker?
Yes.
Counselor Gozick?
Yes.
Counselor Van Buren?
Yes.
Counselor Corradino?
Yes.
Counselor Reynolds? Counselor McLaughlin?
Yes.
The resolution passes 6-0.
Clerk, please call Resolution 149.
Is to approve attendance at the basic course for police officers beginning May 16, 2016 in Oneida, New York, regarding the request of Tori L. Decare, Police Chief.
Counselor McLaughlin, Counselor Van Buren. Any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Walker?
Yes.
Counselor Gozick?
Yes.
Counselor Van Buren?
Yes.
Counselor Corradino?
Yes.
Counselor Reynolds? Counselor McLaughlin?
Yes.
The resolution passes 6-0.
Clerk, please call Resolution 150.
Is to approve attendance at a fire prevention course to be held May 9th through the 10th, 2016 in Montour Falls, New York, regarding the request of Jeffrey M. McRoby, Fire Chief.
Counselor Gozick, Counselor Walker. Any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Walker?
Yes.
Counselor Gozick?
Yes.
Counselor Van Buren?
Yes.
Counselor Corradino?
Yes.
Counselor Reynolds? Counselor McLaughlin?
Yes.
The resolution passes 6-0.
Any unfinished business to come before the council? Counselor Walker,
Move to adjourn.
Counselor McLaughlin. Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Walker?
Yes.
Counselor Gozick?
Yes.
Counselor Van Buren?
Yes.
Counselor Corradino?
Yes.
Counselor Reynolds? Counselor McLaughlin?
Yes.
The resolution passes 6-0.
Meeting adjourned. Well,